We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin. Who are the American people right now? Several new surveys take a look at who we are at this point in time. So let's dig in. To start with, the Great Resignation is not going as well as people thought it would. The majority of U.S. workers who changed jobs during the Great Resignation actually regret quitting and even feel a sense of buyer's remorse, according to a new survey. 7 out of 10 workers, about 72%, admitted that they were surprised to learn that their new roles or companies were different from what they were led to believe during the interview process, according to the survey of more than 2,500 millennial and Gen Z job seekers by The Muse. The Muse CEO, Catherine Minshew, described the trend as, quote, shift shock, unquote. Minshew explained that in some cases, job seekers don't ask the right questions during the interview process. Other times, it's because a recruiter misrepresented the role or was overly optimistic about the company in an effort to get them to join, she explained. As a result, more people are quitting rather than sticking it out. It used to be that if you started a new job and didn't like it, you needed to stay for 1 or 2 years to avoid a black mark on your resume, she said. But we've seen this really interesting shift in perceptions. About 80% of millennials and Generation Z workers say it's okay to leave a new job in 6 months if it's not as advertised, according to Minshew. Meanwhile, a recent Quinnipiac poll asked if Americans were in the same position as Ukrainians right now, would you fight or flee? The results showed a difference based on party lines. Of the Republicans surveyed in the Quinnipiac University poll, 68% said they would stay and fight, compared to only 40% of Democrats. Among Democrats, 52% said they would flee the country, compared to only 25% of Republicans. While the hypothetical question was polarizing between parties, the majority of Americans, 55%, would still stay and fight if they were in the same position as the Ukrainians are now. Only 38% of those surveyed said they would leave the country. And finally, Americans' biggest concern right now is, unsurprisingly, inflation. Americans' inflation fears skyrocketed again in February, with concerns over rising prices hitting the highest level in over a decade, according to a key Federal Reserve Bank of New York survey published Monday. The median expectation is that the inflation rate will be up 6% 1 year from now, matching an 11-year high recorded in November, according to the New York Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Expectations. Inflation expectations over the next 3 years also rose to 3.8% in February, although an increase from January, when it declined sharply to 3.5%, that's a marked improvement from late 2020. With consumers raising their expectations for inflation over the next year, they believe that things like gasoline, food, medical care, rent, and college tuition will get much more expensive for them to buy. The survey plays a critical role in determining how Fed policymakers respond to the recent inflation spike. That's because actual inflation depends, at least in part, on what consumers think it will be. It's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. If everyone expects prices to rise by 3% in the year, That signals to businesses that they can increase prices by at least 3%. Workers, in turn, will want a 3% pay raise to offset the rising costs. This is about well-anchored inflation expectations, Fed Vice Chairman Richard Clorinda said during a question and answer session at the Cleveland Fed last year. Getting actual inflation down close to 2% is going to be an important part of keeping those expectations anchored. That's the raw naked truth. If you have a topic you'd like us to look into, you can contact us at xvadio.com/connect. And you can catch every episode of Raw Naked Truth as well as the rest of the XVadio podcast network at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. We'll see you next time.